Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the ArcGIS Online mapping contest for Tennessee middle school and high school students. Thank you for joining us. I've got Brian Smith with me. Brian is a member of the TGA, and he's also a middle school teacher at Jefferson Middle School in Oak Ridge. And Brian has been working with ArcGIS Online for a number of years. He helps our teachers and does a bunch of training. And I've asked Brian to kind of walk us through some of his sort of key ideas and best practices in terms of managing an ArcGIS Online account so that you and your students all have the access that you need. So Brian, let's start with this. So one of the key things we got to do when we start an ArcGIS Online account is we've got to add students to that. So from your work with the TGA and there at the middle school, what are some of your recommendations on the best way to get students added?
Well, thank you, Mike, and I appreciate you doing this for everybody, and I appreciate everything you've done with the mapping contest. I'd like to share the screen out. I'm going to use the TGA account rather than my school account because I want to keep my kids private, but when you have an organization and, after you sign it up, get set up and you want to invite members, what I like to do is when you go to the members tab there, you click on the invite members up here. And then I like the setting where you add members without sending an invitation when I'm setting up a whole class. And from there, you really just need a CSV file where you go ahead and set up a username and a password, which will be temporary. I like to get a CSV file that I frankly copy and paste the existing usernames and passwords from the school's learning management system. And I just go ahead and set it for them. You do have to have an email, and we do have a school email, but that is a gated email. So it does create a problem, but I'll just click on the next button so you can kind of see, members from a file. But when you have it, you have to have these required fields. We do use their student email, but they're not able to receive emails from ESRI. So that means that they're gonna, when they reset their password, they're gonna forget their password because they're middle school students, and that's the way middle school students are. So once they're prompted to give a new password, I also, in our learning management system, which is Canvas, but you could probably use something like a Google form or a Microsoft Office form, or just have them write it down. But I like to keep a digital copy because it can be copied and pasted easily, where they just tell me what they changed their email to. That way, if they ever lose it or forget it, much like a locker combination, I can just copy and paste and give it right back to them. But that's from a file, and I like that. And it comes in handy when you want to put a batch in, so first name, last name, email, username, and role. I think I usually just set it to publisher, if I got that right, but and then password. But and then you can just do one person at a time later if you get somebody enter your class. So that comes in handy. You can just do that one at a time with them. But like, let's say Megabytes 2019 here forgot their password. What happens is you can reset password, and you can send somebody an email with that address. But like I said, with our school email, they'll never receive it because it's gated. So I don't know what your school system email systems are like, or if your students have their own personal account, you could do it with their own personal email. But you also have, with members, if you want to invite members, the option of just add them with email or email or using an account of their choice. I stay away from that. If I had high school kids, I could see where this might be tempting to use, especially if they have their own email accounts. But with middle school, I find it's just easier to do it all for them behind the scenes, and they don't have to think.
And if you're trying to figure out what is a CSV file and you've not used one of those before, reach out to me or Brian. We've got examples that we can give you that we use either through the TGA or through the school, and we can strip out the anything that's personal identifiable information and just kind of give you an empty template, and then you can fill that in and use that without having any issues. And so, Brian, just to make sure, in terms of usernames for the actual students, what are your thoughts on sort of the idea of PII, personally identifiable information, and usernames?
Right. You don't want their first, middle, last name being used. In my school, they already kind of adjust that for them with our learning management system. It's nice, so I don't have to think very hard. But you know, for me, you know, maybe I just put some initials. Maybe I put down you know, a number that's important to me. Maybe probably not my birthday, probably not my birth year, you know. But you know, you want something that people aren't going to know, you know. So maybe it's their, you know, if you have a pet, you know, that would be fine to use a pet's name, because unless somebody knows you very intimately, they're probably not going to know that level of personal information about you.
And so one of the strategies that I'll do is if I'm going to create a workshop for a bunch of people that I don't have their school email for, what we'll do is we'll just create what I call like a generic password. So it might be, you know, the name of the event that we're hosting, and then I'll put like 1001 at the end, and then I'll use the exact same first part and then just increase the number to 1002, 1003. And that way the names are completely generic. And that helps me out sometimes too, in terms of just helping people stay anonymous with the content that they create. So Brian, can we pull that screen share back up and take a look at those usernames again real quick?
What would you like me to show?
So can you go back to the organization and then the members, and then let's just click on Megabytes 2019 and click on those the three dots over on the right-hand side. And just so everybody knows, there's an option there that says disable ESRI access. And so what ESRI access, the reason why as an educator you might want to know about that is ESRI has hundreds of hours of free training and tutorials. And in order for you and your students to have access to that, you have to enable ESRI access. I'm not sure that it's always enabled by default. So as you're going through and creating accounts for your students, you just want to make sure that that's turned on. That way your students can access all that free training if they need to.
And, you know, this would also be a good time, this disable member or delete member. You know, if you have somebody that enters the contest and they graduated high school, you might, and they moved on with their life, you might want to disable the member. It still keeps all their content, but, you know, perhaps they go to UT and they take, you know, Mike's class, then they're going to get their own login with UT. But you also have delete member, you know, if you probably expect not to hear from that student ever again. But if you have to delete them, you have to make sure that they haven't clicked anything in their content, that there's a button that says don't accidentally delete this, that sort of thing. Or if they have content in there, they can't if you want to delete them. So just maybe the last day of the grading period, have, you know, if they're not, if they didn't enter the contest, or if they're moving on and they don't want to be part of this anymore, make sure they just kind of like cleaning out your locker at the end of the school year. Have them delete the things in their folder, and then you can delete that member. But you definitely want to keep the people, you know, maybe disable member, especially if they place in the contest. You want to, I think you have to keep their map going for at least 1 year. But that's helpful right there.
Yeah, and then Brian, let's take a look at one other thing. A lot of you probably won't need to worry about this, but Brian, if you go up a couple of notches there, there's one that says manage credits. I'm going to have you click on that one for just a second. And so anytime you store data in ArcGIS Online, you run processing tools, that sort of thing, that uses credits. And basically that's how ESRI recoups costs for all their servers and things for their commercial clients. And because you're in a school and you're an educator, you get access to all this for free. So it still uses those same credits, but you can see that like currently our organization has almost, what is that, a million credits. So in all likelihood, this won't be an issue for you. But if you have a student that tries to do something like, geocode every address in the United States, they'll burn through your credits pretty quickly. So if that happens and you need to, you can actually get what's basically called an allowance to your students for credits. And basically they can do as much processing and data storage as they want until they hit that limit. And then they'll get a little notification that says that they have to contact the administrator, which is most likely you, in order to reset that. So if that becomes an issue, you have access to that there. And then Brian, let's do one other thing. Let's go back to that the three dots one more time. And let's click on user type real quick, because I can't remember.
Manage user type, yes.
Okay, so we've got creator, and then let's click that. Okay, and publisher. So in my experience, the creator and the publisher are great if you have students who are going to be working primarily in ArcGIS Online. The only thing you might want to do is, instead of creator, if you're going to have students working in ArcGIS Pro, you may want to change creator to the other option, which is something like GIS Professional. And I think that gives you access to the ESRI's desktop software. That just won't be applicable to most of you.
Yeah, so yeah, you have a few with the roles as well. You definitely don't want to make them administrators.
Gotcha. Let's see. And then, Brian, the only other thing I was thinking about that was important from sort of a starting standpoint, especially in terms of the contest, is when students create their story maps and they're going to submit those to the contest, they have to be publicly accessible so that people can see them. And in order to do that, let's say a student wants to share a story map they've made with their parents or their grandparents or something like that. Those people don't have an account with the school, obviously. So you actually have to click typically one little setting in order to get your organization set up so that people can see content without being logged in. And Brian, I think we go to settings.
Settings and security, isn't it?
Yep, that sounds right.
Down here on the list, security.
Perfect. And yeah, so that very top option there says allow anonymous access to your organization's website. All right, that sounds really bad, but it's actually a good thing. And so you want to make sure that's turned on for your website, for your org account. And basically what that means is that someone who's not logged in can see content that's shared publicly. They still can't see anything that's shared privately. They can't see anything that's shared within the group. They can't see anything that's only shared within the organization. But you have to have that turned on typically in order for people outside the organization to see things that are shared with the public. So things like the story maps, obviously, you'll have to hit that button in order to share those, because otherwise none of us can see the cool projects that your students are working on. Let's see, Brian, was there anything else that was really important that we wanted to talk about with folks before we call it?
I think if you could also let them know that there is a learning pathway and Learn ArcGIS, administering your ArcGIS Online organization, where there's, a setup video, how to set up an organization, time-saving tips. And I need to get into this create an effective homepage. My homepage for my school is lacking, but and creating a custom base map gallery is something that I have lacked. But you've got a lot of helpful tips here with videos and articles and activities. that can help you if this is your first go around with an organization. And even with my 6th year, there are things that I haven't done that I need to do. And this is going to be a place where I start to develop that.
All right. Well, Brian, thanks for sharing your expertise with us and your experience. And I think we'll call it for the evening. We'll put a link to the learning pathway that Brian mentioned with the recording, so you can easily find that if you need it. And if you have any questions, be sure to reach out via either Slack or email to one of the organizers for the contest. So thank you all and have a good evening. And Brian, thank you.
Thank you, Mike.